Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Brick, and welcome to episode 34 of the 11FS FinTech Insider Breakfast Show, brought to you this morning by our good friends over at MyTech. If you didn't know, MyTech delivers bank-grade identity verification by combining the world's best forensic experts with today's industry technology. In this show, we bring you the best and the brightest from around the fintech and banking landscape every single weekday, straight into your homes at 8:30 BST, here live on LinkedIn. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by Emily Spaven, UK news editor at LinkedIn. We're going to be talking about everything that LinkedIn has been up to over the last couple of months when we've been in lockdown, how they're working and how these changes coming along are affecting everybody during this time of crisis. How's it going, Emily? Thank you so much for, getting up early, but getting some quiet in the house as well. You've done a great job, I have to say.
Oh, well, I've a young child, so I'm up early anyway. But anyway, thank you for having me.
Do you know what? I've got I can hear the distant rumble of my children sort of running around upstairs slightly. So you've done a pretty good job this morning of getting some quiet, haven't you?
Oh yeah, I've cleared the house, so the dog's out, the husband's out, the child's out. So nice peace and quiet.
Well done. All right. For everybody watching this over on LinkedIn, we're running, as you guys know, question of the week. So the competition is going to pick out who has the best question over the course of the week for our guest. The best question of the week will then win some FinTech Insider Breakfast Show swag, which we'll announce the winner of on Monday. So get your question in. We'll weave them into the show. Let us know as we go through anything that you want to know from Emily or myself. Emily, why don't we start with a bit of a background to you and what your role entails over at LinkedIn?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm UK news editor at LinkedIn at the moment. In terms of my background is in print and online journalism. So I've worked at a number of websites and newspapers. With a stint at Google in between, just throw that in there. So before LinkedIn, I've been here about 2.5 years, and immediately before working here, I was editor at Tech City News, so a publication focused at startups. And then before that, I was managing editor at CoinDesk. So with a fintech focus there, it focuses on cryptocurrency and blockchain technology.
Fantastic. So, again, I was saying this to you just before we went live, but LinkedIn is such a mix these days of things, and actually it's not just I remember the good old days when LinkedIn started. It was it was a jobs board, right? It was Facebook for businesses, but actually now it's so much more. All of the content side of things. You've got people in the network creating content. You've got you guys curating content. Live shows like obviously what we're doing now. LinkedIn really has, I think, over the last couple of years, really come to the front of where people's focus really is, both personally and professionally. Really, I know from my perspective, if anybody didn't catch it, I wrote a post at the beginning of this year. I've came off Instagram. I can't spend like 3 hours watching TikTok videos, but LinkedIn is really where I place all of my emphasis in terms of the content we create and actually the sense of the impact that we have. So, you've been there for a good period of time now. Like LinkedIn has changed quite dramatically in the last 6 to 12 months, even, hasn't it?
Yeah, there's definitely more of a focus on different types of content. So since I started, video has definitely become a more popular kind of form of media on the platform. And when I joined, so the editorial team at LinkedIn is about 65 to 70 of us globally. I've lost count at this stage. But that's certainly been a focus as well, is bringing news content to members and kind of fostering conversation around topics that are trending at the moment.
And that's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because LinkedIn isn't it's not one community; it's all of the communities sort of together, isn't it? It's not just a fintech or a banking sense where you have the sort of little elements around it. You're constantly looking for trends and news stories across all different types of industry, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And at the moment, with everything that's going on in the world, it's created some really interesting kind of topic hotspots. So we're seeing loads of conversations around working from home, as you'd imagine, and just how to kind of master working in a different way.
And are there any particular top tips that, I mean, I'm still I was very much enjoying this for a period of time, and now I'm a bit itching to get back into the office. So were there any particular tips that that stuck out to you there that that you've employed, other than kicking the dog out early in the morning to get a bit of peace?
Oh, I guess it's, the ones that you see regularly and I try and stick to is, stepping away from your desk as much as, scheduling in breaks. Some people have recommended setting an alarm at the start and the end of the working day to kind of really create that separation. But, it's difficult. I don't have a home office. We have an open plan downstairs. So, I'm working at the dining room table. My child's running around, so it's difficult, but you just got to find what works for you, I guess.
How old's your kid?
She'll be 2 in August.
That's a good age. I mean, it's a good age, but also it's not the age where you can rely on them completely to not run in the middle of a meeting, essentially.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, I do think people are becoming a little bit more, and maybe that's something good that's sort of coming out of this period a little bit, is people are becoming very relaxed about that. I'm not seeing on, we sort of interact with banks a lot through the work that we do at 11FS, but I mean, people are not putting on suits and sitting there all sort of prim and proper all day. People are kind of relaxing a little bit. So, I think my team meeting that's immediately after this, I know at least 2 people will have their kids on their lap during that meeting. So it's, it's a good thing, I think, that people start to realize that work fits really around your life rather than the other way around, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, it's showing that people can work from home, and yes, there might be distractions, but people are still getting their work done. So I think that's a great lesson to be learned from this.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, how during this period then are you engaging with readers from LinkedIn's perspective? Because obviously, as you say, there's lots of different issues that are kind of cropping up. There's there's lots of businesses that are facing difficulty. There's, like, say, the practicalities of working from home. There's unemployment, and I guess from a jobs perspective, people really getting to grips with that. But also, I guess there's quite a lot of issues here around mental health that will keep bubbling up during this period. Isolation is a really big thing. How is LinkedIn sort of engaging with people during this period differently as it would be to sort of normal, whatever that felt like before?
From my team, the editorial team's perspective, I'd say about 95% of our content is coronavirus focused at the moment, as you'd imagine. But it's been really interesting to kind of come up with ways of approaching it and ways of delivering really interesting different types of content. So we've been doing some industry deep dives, so interviewing members from specific industries about how they're feeling. So I spoke to a load of people that work in hairdressing in the beauty industry to see how it's impacting them. Spoke to dentists because obviously they're all closed. And yeah, it's been great to kind of speak to those different groups and see what the different challenges are. And on the mental health point, my colleague did an item where she spoke to a load of mental health professionals, so psychotherapists, kind of asking how people can, one, asking how they're dealing with it, and how it's impacting their business. And obviously there's new trends in all businesses, and they're doing a lot of their consultations via Zoom or via other platforms at the moment. So that's kind of changing the way that they work, but then also asking them for coping tips as well. So yeah, we've kind of found ways to bring interesting content to light through this.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like I say, I think a lot of people get very sort of insular looking only in their industry, but we've all got friends and family who are in different walks of life. My mother-in-law's a dental nurse, and as you say, I mean, she was out there doing things until very recently, because it's the type of service that people are going to still have dental emergencies, and actually how people provide those services in this period is really tough, isn't it? It's very scary. Something that you wouldn't have thought would be a dangerous job suddenly can become a pretty nerve-wracking job for people to kind of go and do, can't it? I mean, something that I've there's lots of various stories of changes that are happening in various different organizations, and a lot of people are during this time, obviously with the government schemes with things like furlough. You guys are doing quite a lot with the LinkedIn learning side of things at the moment, aren't you, with courses and various, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I mean, a lot of people, there are people from 11FS who are on furlough right now, and I've said to them, like, the times that I've had 3 months off. I mean, I've had a few periods of gardening leave between roles, and I always have the very best intent when I start these things. I'm like, I'm going to learn a new language, I'm going to do a bunch of things, and inevitably I end up playing a lot of computer games and watching Netflix, which I shouldn't have done. I should learn. But actually, for those people who are in this period, actually they have a great opportunity to learn something new. So do you want to talk a little bit about LinkedIn Learning?
Yeah, sure. And on that point, I was on gardening leave at one point, and yeah, I was going to do yoga every day and all these grand plans, and I don't know what I did, but
that period of time just disappears, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, in terms of LinkedIn Learning, so what we know about being on furlough is that you can't work for your employer, but you can do training, so you can learn new things, upskill yourself. So LinkedIn Learning is kind of a great platform for doing that. So there are various kind of paid courses that you can do, but then what LinkedIn's done is it's released a package of free courses that everyone can do, and it ranges from things like how to lead a team remotely to how to how to address your stress levels, those sort of things. So really practical tips that should be helpful to everyone at the moment, because, well, most people are working from home at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots in there, and I mean, I've going back to your cryptocurrency days, I was checking it out. There's actually some really interesting fintech related learning courses on there in terms of people sharing their expertise and sort of putting things out there. So, and it's a great resource, isn't it? Because and again, being able to jump in there and learn from the community, learn from what's going on there. Do you see that as part of the business that'll get bigger and bigger? Because I think digital, through this period, everything that we're seeing with Corona, digital everything, digital learning, I think will become the default. Why go sit in a classroom with 20 strangers when actually you can sit and actually do all of these things in the comfort of your own home, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a growth area. And I know that the teams here have partnerships with loads of businesses and universities as well. So a lot of students are using LinkedIn Learning as part of their sort of course material. So it's largely video based. So it's kind of, it's that, rather than just sitting and reading a textbook, then it's that interactive, or it's just kind of a bit more attention grabbing, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so there's a few questions from some of the folks over on LinkedIn. Sadly, Fernando, apparently gardening leave is not a common concept in Spain, so apologies for that. But yeah, it's a nuance of ensuring that if you're moving to a competitor, that you don't take competitor secrets. So the idea of gardening at home. Do you know what? I've never done any gardening on gardening leave, but it's an interesting concept, but potentially just a British thing then. So a few of the questions. So Adana says, so LinkedIn is by far my favorite social media platform. What would be one exciting product enhancement that's in the pipeline that you can tell us about? I mean, this is going to be a difficult one because like industry secrets and stuff, but I mean, you guys are enhancing the platform seemingly every week. I know various different bits of the organization work on different parts of what's out there, but I mean, it feels like LinkedIn is evolving very quickly.
Oh yeah, it's changing all the time. I find it hard to keep up, and I work there. So, but yeah, it's fantastic to see the work that the teams are doing on all of the different products that encompass LinkedIn. But I don't know, I can't really give any secrets away, but you may have noticed that Stories launched in Brazil. So that's all I'll say on that.
Very good. All right. Well, we'll have to check that out then. I mean, I think it's an interesting one. Increasingly, like you say, it's if I and I will make some guesses here, and Emily, you can nod along if I'm on right or not. But actually, I mean, increasingly, LinkedIn is turning into a multi-day platform. I think people would have checked in, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, people might have checked in every few days. Now, I think LinkedIn is becoming the primary touch point for your social world. I think increasingly, and I think again potentially because I live in a sort of a fintech banking bubble where that overlap between what you do for fun and what your job is kind of, those concentric circles are very heavily overlapping. But it is the sort of jump off point for me for many of those things. Question here from Paul Kane. So have you noticed many more connections being made in LinkedIn during this period compared to other times? Are you seeing more engagement at this period of time, Emily?
From the connections point of view, I don't have any specific stats on that, but just anecdotally on the engagement front, yeah, that people, it kind of seems, have more time to write comments, basically. So we've noticed that on the storylines and the news items that we create. So just to explain a little, so the editorial team manages the trending news and views module. So if you're on desktop, then it's at the top right-hand side of the site. So there's headlines there, and then if you click through, then there's a summary of a particular news story, and then we pin member comments to that storyline. So it could be what's in the news today, I forget. There's an O2 merger. So for example, there'd be a summary of that news, and then we would pin posts from members below that, kind of expressing their views on that news story. And we certainly noticed that there's more engagement on those storylines. So it implies that people are kind of reading that content and spending the time to sort of share their views with their network and with the wider platform.
I think it's like you say, using that as a, you're curating the things that are happening most in the industry, and various different industries that affect different people, and then like you say, for people to be able to then give their views, it's interactive media at its best, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So the way that I kind of try and describe it, or the way that I look at it, if you go to a traditional news platform, you're presented with a news story, and that's kind of where the story ends. It's whatever that journalist has decided to present to you. Whereas what we try and do is we give a summary of the story, and we put links into news articles so you can go and read more if you want to find out more information on the story. But then pinning those member posts below just kind of adds an extra element to it. So it's enabling the audience to have their say on a topic rather than it just being a one-way thing.
Yeah, and that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, Howard Moore makes a comment here. So, I mean, in your role here, you've got a kind of a job of deciding what is news. But his comment particularly is, how do you build up trust in the information that's presented? Because obviously, we live in a world of fake news and deep fakes and highly sort of politicized information that's kind of pushed out there. You guys have got a bit of a job there of filtering, but then also allowing the community, as you say, to sort of prove or disprove, can't you?
Yeah, and it's certainly a challenge across media. Obviously, it's a big problem at the moment. But especially at the moment around the coronavirus crisis, we're making sure that we provide access to official sources as much as possible. So we have storylines that are pinned in that module that link through to the government LinkedIn pages, so you can get the most up-to-date information from there and from the World Health Organization, International Monetary Fund, all of these professional bodies that are providing accurate and most up-to-date information. In terms of the voices that we pin to storylines, so it's a case of looking at the comment and just making an informed judgment as to whether it's accurate or not, but also looking at the credibility of the people that are making the comments.
Yeah, and that must be like you say, there's not infinity people. That could almost turn it, with the amount of people that are on LinkedIn, that could turn into thousands of people's full-time job in itself. It feels like LinkedIn, unlike a few other platforms that I won't sort of mention, it feels like LinkedIn's a little bit more sort of self-cleaning. The community does appear to select, and people do stand up for what they sort of believe is right. I've not seen any, in the work that we've done over here, I've not seen people doing, on Periscope, you get a lot of just randoms. It feels very precisely targeted to the people who are most interested in the type of content that you're putting out.
And also, and we were chatting about this earlier, weren't we? The amount of trolls that you get on LinkedIn is so minimal. It's not to say that there aren't any, but it's so minimal compared to other platforms because we don't allow anonymous accounts. They get shut down. We've got our trust and safety team is very hard on making sure that those accounts aren't allowed to exist. So people tend to be a lot more respectful because it's linked to their professional profile. They don't want their bosses or their colleagues seeing them saying ridiculous things. So, but then also on the point of it being quite self-regulating, if you find someone makes an outlandish comment, then you'll see below it, there's so many LinkedIn members sort of pile in to discredit it. So it's quite,
sure.
Kind of takes the pressure off me to have to regulate anything.
It is amazing how brave people are when it's anonymous, isn't it? And like say, I think, as you say, and there's that there's that sort of balance then, isn't there? People have to sort of temper the crazy slightly, because actually, like say, this is their CV. You know, I personally, I sort of think of LinkedIn as everything that adds to your professional life and your professionalism. So if somebody suddenly starts going crazy, I mean, I have you sort of see with through all the different topics, where when we were sort of going through the Brexit, not breakfast, I've got breakfast on the mind, Brexit period, and everything that's happening now, and you know, all the sort of political outlandish things that are sort of happening. Still here, it seems like people are staying on the safe side, or staying on the rational side, should we say, which is healthy. You know, like I say, anonymous sources are always usually the most outlandish, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess during this period, I mean, you've adopted pretty well to sort of working from home. I have to say, I mean, your LinkedIn offices. Last time I was over in New York, I was in the LinkedIn office in New York. You guys have offices that are pretty awesome. So yeah, I mean, you must be missing those a little bit. But do you think during this period, I mean, when we all, I mean, if you read the news as you do every morning, I think Boris is about to announce that you know, 3 or 4 weeks from now, we might start to be able to start going back to work or going back to the offices. What do you think you will have taken from this period? Do you think you'll be working from home more frequently, or do you think you'll be ready to get back into those offices?
Oh, I'm definitely ready to get to get back. Kind of sick of staring at the same walls, but I was, LinkedIn's very flexible, so I was working from home usually 1 day a week anyway, and I was working 4 days a week, so I have Fridays off to spend with my daughter. But so yeah, I think I would continue to do 1 day a week from home, but probably to start with, I'll be in the office all the time just to have a change of scenery.
Do you know, it's amazing, isn't it? It's the little things that you miss, isn't it? It'll be the 5 or 10 people you immediately sit around that actually it's like missing part of your family, isn't it? Which is kind of bizarre.
And we have an on-site barista, so I'm definitely missing that as well.
Yeah, the instant coffee only gets you so far. Definitely, Jeff in our team at 11FS is desperate to get back in so he can head to grind. But all right, folks. Well, thank you so much, and Emily, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate everything you're doing on LinkedIn, and appreciate you getting up early and spending some time with us this morning. Where can people? I mean, I know the answer to this. The answer is going to be LinkedIn, isn't it? But where can people find out more about what you're up to at LinkedIn and what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, well, you can search for me, Emily Spaven on LinkedIn, also Emily Spaven on Twitter, if you want to look at me on there as well, although I obviously post more on LinkedIn. But yeah, as I say, the module that I manage is in the top right-hand side of the site, or it's within search on mobile, so check that out. We do the daily rundown every morning, so that comes out into your notifications, and that's a roundup of 5 of the top news stories of the day, so check that out as well.
Fantastic. All right, guys, as it's a bank holiday tomorrow in the UK, that's all that we have for you this week. Stay safe and get some well-deserved rest over a long weekend. And we'll be back with you on Monday with the winner of the Question of the Week show, and actually a really great lineup next week. So if I just give you a bit of a flavor, on Monday, we've got Dave Birch, director over at Consult Hyperion. I mean, I'd like to say I'm going to tell you what Dave's going to talk about, but Dave will talk about whatever Dave wants to talk about, I'll be honest with you. On Tuesday, we have Gemma Godfrey, who is a business advisor and fintech entrepreneur. I don't know why I keep doing this. We keep inviting people on who are like way better presenters than I am, and Gemma's definitely in that category. So I'm going to be talking to her about what she's been up to with her career. She was actually one of the advisors to Arnold Schwarzenegger as well, which is an amazing thing to have done. So let's have a chat to her about what she's up to there. On Wednesday, we've got Mr. InsurTech himself, Nigel Walsh, who's a partner over at Deloitte, and we'll be talking to him about what's happening in the insurance side of things during this crisis as well. On Thursday, we're coming in from Singapore, we've got Eduardo Fabian, who is the Chief Technology Officer over at tech giant Razer. They're doing some really, really interesting things over there right now. And actually, we'll be talking to him about everything that's happening within the Asian fintech market and what they're doing, particularly at Razer, to help people through this process as well. And on Friday, last but definitely not least, coming in from Germany, we've got Dr. Robin Chiera, who is the CEO over at digitalscouting.de. We're going to be catching up with him on everything he's been up to during this period and much, much more. So pretty awesome lineup this week, pretty awesome lineup next week. We hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you so much for tuning into the show this week. If there's anybody else that you want me to get on, just drop me an email on david@11fs.com or tag them into the comments. Thanks very much, everybody. Stay classy, FinTech. Goodbye.